throughout the state of Florida. I've been an attorney since 2003, so come October it'll be 20 years. A little scary. My practice focuses on real estate and business transactions. Like I said, we also do litigation in the office. I serve on the committee that writes the NABOR contract. I know it's not super popular in Fort Myers, but gets a little use in Bonita. And then I also serve on the Real Estate Industry Liaison Committee for the Florida Bar, and that is the one that writes the FAR Bar contract. So I know all the contracts very well, and you can just call or text, and I'll help you out. I'm a recovering politician, so you have to excuse the jokes. Once in a while they creep in there. Today, we're going to talk about the title process, what we do in our office as a title attorney, and we'll talk about taking listings in various scenarios, and we'll go through the contract to closing, from contract to closing. So let's talk first about the title process. To me, it's very important as realtors that you be able to speak intelligently about the closing process and answer questions for your customers about what they're getting themselves into. Of course, you know how to sell real estate, you can list, you can market, you can make websites and templates and do presentations on the property and all that. But what happens once the contract is signed? What is going to be occurring in the background, so to speak? Basically, what are Lisa and I doing for your customer? So let's talk a little bit about the title process. First is the title search. We research title of the property, we make sure title is clear, we're looking for marketable title, of course, in the contracts, and we examine it, we look for liens, claims, and make sure that we're looking for marketable title. We order the survey. A lot of people say, well, whose job is to order the survey? It's my job. The survey is the second most important document in the transaction besides the deed, and it's often the most overlooked. There's, anybody here know where lot 17 block F in Lake Park is? No. So when you look at the deed, you have no idea where you live. That's where I live in Naples. But if you look at the survey, you get an address, you get to see where it is on earth related to the other properties, and you look for encroachments. Very important document. I should do a whole class on why I think the survey is a good idea. Property taxes, we verify that the taxes are collected. We've checked the water and utility, make sure that the association dues are all paid, everybody's current. We, of course, do the title insurance. We make sure that the title is, again, marketable, then we issue the title insurance policy. We'll go over the loan documents, of course, when you're getting a mortgage, the legal description on the title commitment has to match the legal description on the deed, has to match the legal description on the mortgage. We make sure all that stuff lines up, make sure all the names are there, the marital statuses are correct. And then, of course, we conduct the closing. We get all the documents from the seller, we get all the documents and the money from the buyer, and we have a closing. We pay off all of them and release the mortgages, and we make sure that everything is ready to go and returned to the lender, and then we record everything. You can pass a deed, but nobody knows about it. Somebody else resells the property. Bad situation. So we make sure that everything's properly recorded in the official records of the county. So what am I doing for you? Basically, from contract to closing, we handle the rest. We manage the deadlines, we negotiate inspections in my office as an attorney, and whether you're closing with Paradise Coast Title or through my law office, I will be available to help negotiate the inspections. We deal with loan issues, short sales to the extent they are coming back, hopefully never. Anybody here around here 2008, 9, 10? Yeah, short sales. And then we clear title and do all the things, looking for all the liens, make sure that again, the marketable title passes, then of course we do closing. And the title process, we coordinate the interests of all the parties, looking at all the buyers, the sellers, we talk to you, the realtors, lenders, and we make sure that all the requirements are satisfied. And then, of course, we're looking out for the red flags. That's really my job, is looking out for the red flags. So what are the red flags? There's a lot of them. It could be divorces or separation, there could be bankruptcies, foreclosures, recent marriages, liens and judgments, deaths, or easements. And just to touch on a few of these, I'm going to go over some of these in great detail. But for example, if you have a bankruptcy, you need permission from the bankruptcy trustee to sell the property. So then we gotta contact the bankruptcy trustee, the bankruptcy court. Sometimes we need to go into federal court in the Middle District here in Fort Myers and get an order to sell. Recent marriage or recent divorce, who has to be on title? I had the question yesterday, we're not married yet, we're gonna get married, we're both gonna be on title, or I'm the only one who's gonna be on title, who signs the mortgage? Well, you're not married yet, so only you sign the mortgage, and then you can pass title to your spouse after you get married. Deaths, who's responsible? Anybody know if someone's recently passed away, what the first step is to list your property for a deceased person? Anybody know? Yes, ma'am. Close. Well, it could be a copy of the death certificate. It's probably, though, probate. So, more red flags, known encroachments. Again, going back to that survey, is that air conditioner in a maintenance easement? Anybody here selling a homeowner association with tight, close, the properties are close together? There's always maintenance easements and drainage easements and utility easements between those houses. Somebody puts an air conditioner in an easement, you might have a problem depending on the association. Sellers and buyers that will not be present for closing. We're going to talk a little bit about fraud. When I first made this slide 10 years ago, I was talking about mail-away closings. But now, if my seller's not present, I immediately get concerned about fraud. And we have a slide on that stuff. Is there going to be a power of attorney? Somebody can't sign, they're incapacitated, do they have a durable power of attorney versus non-durable power of attorney? Just had that case yesterday as well. Again, foreign sellers used to be all we cared about was whether we had to collect 10 or 15% for FERPA. Now we got to deal with fraud too. So, and I talk a lot about fraud. It's a big deal. It affects everybody. Southwest Florida, big transactions, lots of transactions, lots of realtors, lots of lenders, lots of new people coming down here. A lot of fraud. Be very, very careful. Association liens is a big deal, of course. Associations, if they put a lien on the property, that's got to be cleared. If there's violations, that's got to be cleared. So we look for all those types of things. And then one of the services that we do in our office, I think sets us apart from a lot of other offices, is that we look for issues that will delay closing. And if I call you and tell you, hey, there's a lien on the property, the association's got a lien, got to get paid off, I'm going to work to resolve that problem, and I'm not just going to tell you, hey, it's an issue, you have to do it. I'm going to work with you to get it done. Our goal is to keep the closing moving forward. So let's talk about taking a listing. What can you do when you're taking a listing to make the process go more smoothly? Well, before you even go on your listing appointment, before you even set out the door to go meet with your seller, look at the prior deed. There might be a link in MLS. Depending on your MLS, you can certainly go to the property appraiser's website and look at the prior deed. I'm sure all of you are doing this, but I just got to say it so that make sure it gets done. But it tells you who you are dealing with. You get a call from Bob Smith. He's selling such and such property, and then you go on the appraiser's website. You see that Bob Smith is not on title. Your first question is, who are you and why am I talking to you? If you've got multiple people on the deed, you need to be prepared for multiple people to sign your listing agreement. Glance through the public record. Go to the official records. Not, if you go to the county clerk's website, you've got court records, you've got county commission records, you've got official records. The official records in Florida are the property records. And take a glance, search names in those official records, see what you can come up with. The clerk, the appraiser, the tax collector. You're looking for ex-spouses, deceased people. If there's an LLC owner, who you're going to deal with, we're going to talk in detail about that. Is there a trust that's an owner? We'll talk about that. Is there a power of attorney that was used for signing the prior deed? Talk about all those things in a second. And then, of course, we're looking for fraudulent sellers. If somebody calls you up and says they're selling the property, they only want to be on Zoom or all those other things, again, we'll talk about that in detail. Then the other thing that I like, this is just kind of a practice tip. When you go on your listing appointment, pre-fill your documents. If if you got your listing agreement set up, you know, in the ABC 123 LLC, and you know, and you look on the Sunbiz website and at the Secretary of State's website, you see that, you know, Bob Smith is the manager, put him down as the manager, and said, when you present to him, you say, oh, you saw my LLC. You know, it's good. So let's talk about looking for fraudulent sellers. Vacant land, Lehigh, Cape Coral, Marco Island's got a huge problem for anybody that reaches down that far south. Big problem. No mortgage on the property. If there's a mortgage on the property, it's much harder to get away with fraud. They actually have to be a payoff to transfer. Foreign owner, absentee owners, these are all indications of fraud. The seller won't talk by phone, they want everything by email. You know, misspelled words, bad formatting in emails. I know that I personally get at least 10, sometimes 20 fraudulent email requests a day for payoffs from Bank of America or wherever it is that, you know, they copy the graphics really nicely, but everything's off just a little bit. You know, the margins are a little weird, or the emails on Gmail account that's the sender. Well, Bank of America doesn't use Gmail. So that, you gotta look for things. Cut and paste looking, how to prevent it. Do a Zoom call, get them on FaceTime. Meet them in person if you can. Check their ID, make sure that it matches. We had a deal in our office that came through where they had a fake ID and a fake passport, but they misspelled license on the license. We caught them, you know. Actually, that was my FERPA company that caught them. You know, Google everything. Google everything. Their email address. There may be somebody else that was a victim of fraud that posted on one of the 100 forums for fraud alerts that there was fraud. Google their name, their phone number, their email address, everything. Google the real seller's name on the deed, see what they pop on Facebook. You gotta be a sleuth these days, you're gonna be a victim. You know, ask your seller then for the following. When you go on your listing appointment, after you've confirmed that it's not fraud, you've looked through the public records, you're ready to go on your listing appointment, you're going on your listing appointment, you've done everything, you get the listing, ask them, you're gonna wanna get a few documents from your seller to make the process go smoothly from contract to closing. So you wanna get it up front. Get their prior title policy, clears up a lot of title issues. You know, get their survey. That saves the buyer a few $100s having to get a survey if the seller can sign a survey affidavit. Get their mortgage statements, because we're going to get the phone number off there for the payoff. Payoff fraud is huge. If you give me a mortgage statement, I will call the number on the mortgage statement, and I won't call any other number. So when I get the fraudulent payoff, I know not to call that number. I call the number on the mortgage statement. I confirm wire instructions with that number. Again, very big deal. You know, and now this asks specifically about whether they have a second mortgage. If they don't have a second mortgage, ask them if they have a line of credit. If they don't have a line of credit, ask them if they have a HELOC. Because all of those are second mortgages that go by different names, and all of them are liens on the property. Somebody said, no, I don't have a second mortgage, I've got a line of credit. Same thing. I promise you, no bank made a loan to somebody unless they're really, really well heeled without getting collateral. That collateral is very likely their home. Get their association information. In the FAR contract, the contract says the seller shall initiate the approval process for the association. So find out, get that association statement. Usually it's from a management company, and it's got a phone number and a contact name on there, and it's got the dues and when they're due and how much. We need all that for closing. Look and see if there's a master and a local association. Anybody who's selling high rises, you have to drive through a gate to get to the high rise, and then you go past another high rise to get to that high rise. You probably pass through an HOA to get to the condo association, which means you're dealing with 2 associations in your closing at least. Sometimes you've got a club, which means you're dealing with 3 associations. So you gotta know all that. If you ask the seller at the listing appointment to get it. Because we're going to need it for closing, You need to get the association application package. If it's a condominium, you need to provide the documents. If it's an HOA, you gotta provide the HOA disclosure. And all that information you can get just from getting their basic association information right at the listing. And then don't forget about association documents and condominiums because of that 3-day right of rescission. You don't want to be stuck at the closing table when you forgot the governance form, for example, or you gave the budget instead of the most recent year-end financials, and then the buyer starts negotiating the price because it's time to close, and he's out it out. Ask them if you see in the public record or any gives you indication, ask them for the power of attorney, their death certificate, any trust agreement or operating agreements for their LLCs. And we're talking about all these in detail, but ask your seller for these documents. Give them to your closing agent so that they're ready to go. It saves a lot of time and hassle, especially if your seller is out of town and it's going to be a mail away. You know, and by the way, the reason I say this to you to get it up front is your seller has already signed the listing agreement. That means they trust you that you're going to sell their house. They're never going to remember who their closing agent is. You guys are the ones that have the relationship with the customers. And looking good, looking professional in front of them, to me, I think is very, very important. And understanding how all these things work is really important. If you're doing investment property or rental properties, ask them for copies of their leases. All of the contracts require the buyer to review the lease, and then we do a tenant estoppel off of the lease, so we need the lease. So let's talk about who signs for who. Before I go on who signs who, does anybody have questions so far on the listing? Taking a listing? Who do you need on your contract for an effective listing and sale? Remember, whoever's on the prior deed or some subsequent owner, heir, person needs to sign your listing agreement. You want to make sure you get everybody on the listing. We want everybody on the contract. We want everybody on the deed. So who signs for who? Let's talk about LLCs, limited liability company sellers. There are 2 documents that control LLCs. You've got your articles of organization. This is the document that creates the LLC. This is the document that's filed with the Secretary of State. It's available on sunbiz.org. And the next document is the operating agreement. This document is the management contract between the company, the owners, and the manager. This document is not a public record. You have to ask your seller, may I please get a copy of your operating agreement so I know who can sign the deed. And then that's the person that signs the contract, and you want to get that person on your listing agreement. In Florida, anywhere, you can either be manager managed or member managed as an LLC. In a manager managed LLC, you're asking for the manager to sign, and when you make your title, when you make your signatures, it's ABC LLC, Bob Smith, manager. In a member-managed LLC, the member to sign. And typically, you need all the members to sign. By the way, if everyone's taking pictures of the slides, I will email this whole thing to you if you want it. So you don't have to take pictures. Sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. Yeah, I will email you guys these slides, and this presentation is going to be on the Royal Palm website. So you can watch it again, and it'll probably end up on my YouTube channel as well. So that's right, I'm a YouTuber. Very impressed with myself. My 13-year-old loves the fact that his father is a YouTuber. Yes, son, I have a YouTube channel. But we're looking for who has the power to bind the LLC. Who is the person that is authorized to bind the LLC so that you can close effectively. There's no such thing as a managing member LLC in Florida anymore. This went away several years ago, but most people don't know that, so they haven't updated their articles of organization. And so when you see a managing member, it's just a member now. They've all been converted to just member. So if you've got a guy who says, yeah, I'm the managing member of such and such LLC, I signed for the LLC, and then you look and there's no operating agreement or the operating agreement is unclear, he's now just a member, and you actually need all of the members to sign. So you got to be very careful when it's a managing member. If there's no operating agreement, we look and see what the articles say. If they're unclear, everybody signs. All the people involved, all the, if you have 3, 4 partners, they all might have to sign. You do not have to register the LLC in Florida to do business, so we may be dealing with an out-of-state LLC. If it's not owning rental property, and it's just Bob Smith and Mary Smith put their vacation home in an LLC for liability protection, we may have to go look at the state, the northern state's laws to figure out who signs. So we have experience to do that in our office. Okay. Now, trustees. So in Florida, trusts don't hold title to real property. Trustees hold title to real property in trust for the beneficiaries. So if you ask somebody from Massachusetts, yeah, my trust owns the property. No, they don't. Your trustee holds title for you as the beneficiary in trust. It's a difference because you won't, if you see, the 123 Happy Acres Trust on title and you don't see a trustee, you may have a title defect. It's a clue that your title company needs to get involved early and figure out who's going to deal with this, who actually signs for this property. But again, you're looking for who has the power to sign for the trust. If it says on the title, Bob and Mary Smith, co-trustees of the Bob and Mary Smith Family Revocable Trust, dated such and such, and you go to the listing appointment and you're talking to Mike, well, he might be a son or a cousin or an uncle. He's probably a successor trustee. So when you're doing your titling on your documents, when I'm doing the titling on my documents, it's going to say, Mike Smith, successor trustee to the Bob and Mary Smith Family Trust, dated such and such. There may be co-trustees. Yes, ma'am.
When you talk about trust, I remember we had one where the person had opened up a trust account.
Yeah.
To have the money put into, sold as the
Sure.
And he didn't want to do that. He wanted to go to his name, his
Right.
name. And they insisted on having this separate account. Is that something that's still?
That depends on the trust agreement. So it's a very good question. People often say, I'm selling out of my trust, but I don't want the funds to go. I don't have a bank account for the trust. I never opened one. We just formed this trust 20 years ago to buy this vacation home. In case I die, I want to avoid probate in Florida, and probably go to my kids. But they never actually funded the trust with money. They never got an account. You have to read the trust agreement. And the way it's an underwriting decision, really. It's not really a statutory question. It's what the underwriter says. What Old Republic, which is my underwriter, says, we can disperse out to an individual who is a beneficiary of the trust, so long as there aren't other beneficiaries. So if I'm dispersing, if the trustee tries to take the money into their own name, that's where you get into questions whether that's allowed, because again, trustees hold money and property in trust for beneficiaries. But if the money is going to a beneficiary, or if the trustee and the beneficiary are the same person, then in my office we have no problem dispersing to the individual's account. Because why do you want to go deal with XYZ Bank and form a new bank account only to take it out the next day? When you have a trust, your seller's attorney in almost every case must examine the entire trust agreement. So when you're taking a listing, get a copy of the trust agreement. It's gonna be reviewed. They may not like it may be 200 pages long, it may be a big mess. It's probably in a binder with 20 other estate planning documents, and they don't want to deal with it. They don't have a choice. They're selling property out of a trust. Unless the trust powers are in the deed, then we may not need to deliver the trust to the closing agent, but we are going to want to take a look at it to make sure that the right parties are signing your listing agreement and signing all the paperwork. Questions about trusts or LLCs? So, getting divorced in Florida, you need to examine the marital settlement agreement and see if the other spouse is still on title, or if they've been divested of title in the marital settlement agreement. You may need an affidavit or a quitclaim deed to determine to complete the marital settlement agreement requirements. If you are divorcing in Florida, you are either married, I should say this, you are either married or single in Florida. There's no separations recognized under Florida statute. So when you're divorcing, you're married, and the other spouse is going to have to sign. We all know that can be contentious, it's a difficult conversation. That's when you call, and I will help you with that because for whatever reason, I'm good at it. No, because you need an attorney or somebody with authority that can explain to them, the judge said you're selling this property. It's in your marital settlement agreement, it's in your divorce, final judgment of divorce. We can go back to the divorce court and spend a bunch of money, or you can sign this quickly. And that's really that's a very difficult conversation to have, but it's one that I end up having about once a month. Okay, dead people on title. You may need a probate if they're holding title as husband and wife or joint tenants with rights of survivorship. You may just need a death certificate. You may just need some affidavits filed depending on the status of the probate or the status of the prior title. If they did not have joint tenancy, if it says Bob Smith and Mary Smith, unless we can get a continuous marriage affidavit signed, we're probably going to probate. And you can't sign a listing agreement until you start the probate, you get the personal representative appointed, and then you're dealing with the personal representative. So you gotta be very careful. I get this question at least 2-3 times a week. Sam, so-and-so just passed away. My friend wants to sell the property. Who signs? I said, is the probate started? No. Step 1, we go to probate. I know a very good probate lawyer, works throughout Southwest Florida to get it done in 6 or 8 weeks. But you gotta go through probate, at least start the probate process. You're gonna need an order of sale, unless the power of sale is already in the will. Even if the property is held in trust, if it's homestead property, there's some bad case law in Florida due to some nefarious, call her new wife, and the children of old wife who passed away fighting. The Aronson cases are bad cases for trust, and basically the beneficiaries are going to be signing in almost every case when it's in a trust and the homestead property is someone's passed away. And the short of it is you cannot disinherit a spouse in Florida. Questions about dead people? That's horrible, Sam, sorry. That's worse than political news. I'm trying to avoid, that's really, Okay. So when the seller is siding with a power of attorney, what do? You have to comply with Florida law. That would seem obvious, but what do you do when you have an out-of-state power of attorney? Well, the law in Florida changed in 2011. And you have to sign powers of attorney with the formalities of the deed. That's 2 witnesses and a notary. If the power of attorney is for a different state, we may be able to get it, if it doesn't have the 2 witnesses and the notary, we may be able to get an opinion letter from the attorney that drafted the power of attorney or some other attorney in that state that says it complies with that state's law. We keep that letter in our file, and then we can go forward and file the power of attorney. We need an original power of attorney no matter what, because it's got to be recorded. This is very contentious with sellers who don't want to turn over the only copy of mom's power of attorney that they've got. Unfortunately, we must have an original power of attorney. If it's, we can walk into the courthouse, we can record it electronically, get it right back to them, but we've got to have an original. So when you're going on your listing, ask them, do you have the original power of attorney? They're probably not going to want to give it to you right there, and I don't suggest that you take it right there, but just tell them that it's going to have to be available for closing. So a regular power of attorney does not survive the incapacity of the principal. If I give power of attorney to Lisa, and then I have a heart attack and go into a coma, she loses the ability to sign for me, unless it's a durable power of attorney. So you want to look at the power of attorney document if you're dealing with someone who's incapacitated and see if it's durable. You'll either reference the statute, which I don't forget what the statute reference is, but it'll say this power is a durable power of attorney. The trustee sign, and we cannot use the power of attorney. So again, if I give the power of attorney to Lisa, and I'm the trustee of the trust for Kristen's property, and then I'm otherwise unavailable to sign, if my trust agreement with Kristen doesn't say that I'm allowed to delegate my trust duties to Lisa, I can't do that. I can only do what's in the trust agreement as trustee. And to make matters worse, because the property is in trust, the beneficiary has no authority to sign either. So for whatever reason I'm unavailable, and you can't get hold of me and we can't do a mail away, you would have to reform the trust agreement, and that means you're going to court. Now, in the modern times, when you've got Zoom and remote online notary, I could be in Timbuktu and I can still sell the property. I just have to get a connection to the internet. So a lot of these problems go away, but they are still in the statute, and they do come up once in a while. Other questions? So what can you do to make the closing process go more smoothly from your side? From my side, all of you that have done closings, you know, you get blasted with emails, I need this, I need that, fill this out, sign this, do that. To circumvent a lot of that, what can you do to make the closings process go more smoothly? Number one, once the contract is signed, be mindful of the deadlines. The clock is ticking. You know your deadlines in your contract for inspections, for everything. Don't forget you've got title deadlines too. You've got a cure period, you've got to turn over the prior policy if it's available within so many days, all kinds of things. And then get the closing agent, the closing package as quickly as possible. Anybody here use a transaction coordinator? Get your transaction coordinator spun up, give them a copy of this presentation, especially the slides, so they know what to ask for. Get all the documents together, get them into a nice neat package and shoot them over to your closing agent as quickly as possible. Now, in my office, we use buyer and seller information forms. There are 5 pages thereabouts. I like to brag, it's probably the most comprehensive information form you're gonna see. It's got questions about everything. And we ask all the pertinent details, we put it all into our system, and we can be ready to close very quickly. But use the buyer and seller information forms. They're available on my website. You either go to saadlegal.com or paradisecoasttitle.com. You can download them, and I would take those with you on your listing agreement, on your listing appointment. You know, to say, seller, here you go, fill this out, we'll get to the title company, we'll get it started. Especially in Lee County, where the seller pays for title anyway, so they pick the title company, just get it all together and get it ready to go. So again, association information, this is more information, this is just a continuation of the last slide. Get all this stuff. Application, I said this before, the FAR bar says the seller shall initiate the approval process and put it in the MLS. You know you can load documents into the MLS, put the survey, put the application, put the condo docs. Don't forget the governance form. I use the governance form to get people out of a lot of contracts. So make sure you use the newest governance form. There's an old one and a new one that's dated 2019 or 2021. Make sure you're using the new one. Get the original power of attorney, the death certificates. We have to have original death certificates. Oh, I just realized this for the first time yesterday. You have to have the short form death certificate if it's a Florida death certificate. If you use the long form death certificate, it contains all the autopsy information on it, and the clerk of courts can't record those because it contains personal, non-public identifying information. Again, get all this stuff. And then, of course, your commission verification. In my office, we do 2 things quickly. We order the title come in right away, we get the HUD started right away, the closing statement started right away. And we need to know commissions. If the lender, when we send to the lender, they like to know, especially if there's going to be any credits back to the buyer. So your closing agent is a resource for you. If you have a question, you can call me anytime. I will help you navigate the red flags. I don't know why this flag is blue, it used to be red. But what do we need from you? We need information. Can't operate in the dark. You know, the banks want more information, they want it sooner. Using our forms helps you get through the process, learning the red flags, get through the process, and you can always call me. I will bring you a solution to your problem. I've never had a situation where I said, no, this property can never be sold. Every property in Florida is alienable. It can be sold. It may take a little while, it may take some work and some money, but we'll get it done. What should you demand from your closing agent? So there's a lot of title companies in Lee County and Collier County. There's a lot of real estate attorneys. You want your closings done right, and you want them done right away. You know, the last thing you want to find out is the day before closing that you got to go negotiate an extension because there was a problem with the title. You should know that stuff right away. A question you can ask your title agent is, when do you order your title commitment? If you got one of those title agents that doesn't order their title commitment right away because they don't want to spend $75 in case the inspections fall through or the deal's going to fall apart for another reason, they're doing it wrong. We order our title commitments right away. That title commitment is the Bible. It's our Bible, right? It tells us everything that has to be done to get the closing done after you get the contract signed. And again, regular communication. You should be getting an email from my office or from your closing agent pretty regularly with updates. Copies, if it goes to your customer, you'll be copied on it. Very important that you know what's going on. Because again, you have the relationship. And they're going to remember their realtor. You're going to send them a postcard when you sell their neighbor's house. They have no idea who I am. I advertise until I'm blue in the face. They spend all the money on Google ads I want. They're never going to remember their closing agent. But they are going to remember their realtor. Okay, any questions? Free legal advice. I did it in 45 minutes, that's what I was told. Yes, ma'am.
How soon after the listing should you do some kind of title work so that you know you're not going to wait 6 months and then find out there's liens? I know you gave us 3 places to investigate, but I'm saying.
Well, what I would do, honestly, I would do 2 things after I take the listing to get my listing ready. I would call my title company and ask for a pencil search, which means not just you looking through the public records, but somebody that does it every day looking through the public records. If you know there's going to be a problem, like if someone has passed away, or you know that, or there's powers of attorney and someone is incapacitated, really, especially if someone has passed away in title, or there's a probate ongoing, or there was a probate in the past, we should just order a title commitment. You know, I mean, it costs me $75 or $175, but it's worth it if we're gonna get the closing anyways to find out what's on title. It just makes the process so much easier. Other questions? Yeah.
You hold escrow.
We hold escrow. Yeah. We hold escrow. Yes, sir.
You said that the governance form was changed in 2000.
I can't remember the date. Do you remember the date?
Do you know what they changed?
No, I don't think they changed anything. They just put a new date on it. But if you use the contract says you get the most recent form and you use the old form, then when your buyer calls me up and tells me they want to get out of the contract, my first question is, did you get a copy of the governance form? This is for condominiums only, by the way. But I said, did you get a copy of the governance form? Oh, you did? What year was that? What's the date on that one? And invariably, this listing agent gave the wrong year. Gave the wrong one.
I believe it was October 2021.
I think you're right. I think it was October of 2021.
I think that was Janet, the other lawyer.
Yeah.
So with that.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you share, are you doing all these things as Sam the attorney or Sam the title company?
That's a very good question. I own Paradise Coast Title, and of course I own my law firm. We issue title policies through Paradise Coast Title exclusively. But when you need an attorney, I'm always there. Whether it's I'm the general counsel to Paradise Coast Title, I'm just helping draft an amendment for the contract, or whether someone needs representation because they're trying to get out of the contract, you know, they can hire me as an attorney. What I do is I charge one fee, a closing fee. If you need attorney services, I just jump in and get it closed. I don't, you know, there are some law firms that they own title companies separately, and then if you're in the title company, you can't talk to the lawyer because you're not paying the lawyer, and the lawyer's busy doing something else. I don't do that. My job is to get it closed.
So would it could hire the title company?
Yeah.
And also hire you as a real estate attorney to represent in the
You
transaction?
can do that.
Okay.
But basically, if you want my services, you can just write Sam Saad as the title, as the escrow company on the contract. That's the easiest way to do it. Just write Sam Saad. And we'll put it in the right place. We make sure that when we send our wire instructions, it'll go into the Paradise Coast Title escrow account. The title policy will be issued by Paradise Coast Title and Escrow. But if they need an attorney, I'm there. Kristen helps. We have 2 other attorneys in the office. Yes, ma'am.
Do you also, attorney side handle like mortgages that the seller can't get a payoff?
You mean like when you have to send a demand letter to the lender because they refuse to respond in the statutory period? Absolutely. I have a form like that happens so often. Yeah. Or when you have a private lender and they don't want it, you can't find them, so you have to send the demand letter and give them so many days to get the payoff. Yeah, we do that all the time. Or you get the payoff information and then they're too late to sign the satisfaction in 60 days. We send a demand letter for that too.
I have a client that's been through 3 attorneys so far and he still can't get it.
Interesting. Give me a call, we'll try it. Maybe we'll be the lucky number 4. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any advice on a lot of these properties now that are, like, they're trying to decide to sell, insurance settlement or whatever?
Well, the state of Florida just had an emergency or special session of legislature, and all those assignment of benefits rules just changed. So, what I would say is if you've got, I know Fort Myers Beach is a big mess, I know a lot of other properties, we're talking about assignment of benefits and who's supposed to pay who, and I would say, to the best that you can, hold off on that. There's going to be several articles coming out from the Florida Bar and from NABOR down in Clark County. I'm sure they'll do it in Royal Palm. A lot has changed in the insurance world. For one thing, you can't do assignment of benefits anymore. They got rid of it. So there's a lot of changes. There's a bunch of stuff that's going to be coming out here in the next few weeks on how to deal with what the legislature just did. Your legal advice. All right. Yes, sir.
Do you have any kind of special forms or anything that would relate to that 50/50 rule right now?
The 50/50, mean FEMA,
Yeah, with the FEMA.
FEMA 50%.
Protect ourselves, and make sure that everybody in the whole, in that transaction understands the situation.
What I've been doing is, I have if you email me afterwards, I'll send it to you. I just have some language that I put in the other terms and conditions, the additional terms section of the contract. And it's something along the lines of, this property was damaged by Hurricane Ian. The seller makes no representations as to the structural integrity of the property or the ability to rehabilitate the property. But a lot of people ask me, do you have a standard form? I have standard forms, but I pretty much customize everything to the situation. So I can send you some language, but I would recommend that you just cut and paste into every contract. Because it depends on the situation, If the home got the roof torn off or roof damaged, but it's structurally sound, we will talk about the roof as opposed to the structure. So there's a lot of scenarios. What I say to people, and by the way, I do free legal advice. So if I do 30-minute consultations, and I would say, if I would have to research it, or if I would have to get Kristen involved to research it now, then I just answer the question on the phone. Just give me a call. It's really simple. I don't charge realtors for all that stuff. It's easier for me to do a closing than it is for me to set up an account in my billing system and charge you $40. Other questions? All right, then I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all very much for your time today. I said I'd give you my cell phone number. There it is. I will email anybody the slides who wants them. I'm available at saadlegal.com. You can call, text, email, smoke signals, whatever you got, I can answer. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm on YouTube, but I don't know how to communicate through YouTube. I can only post. And then, what? I don't know. I know I'm on there because I get the funny jokes. Yeah, and if you, Oh, the other thing is, if you give me your card, I will put you in my database and I will send you my title tips email when I send them out every couple of weeks. You'll get the latest and greatest as to what's going on in the world of title closings. Yes.
If you're on that email for like Zoom meetings,
Yeah, same thing. Same. If you guys get my Zoom classes, then you should be getting title tips too. Thank you. I'll get you on that. Thank you very much. Hold on, let me turn this on. We do black tie, this is